West Virginia keeps their bowl hopes alive with a win against Oklahoma. Brent Venables' season with the Sooners still struggling through his first year with the Big 12 team. Hello, everyone. Welcome to SlasherU. I'm your host, Christian Rao, here with my co-host, Steve Feck, and the Mountaineers still keep breathing. They still stay alive. There's a possibility still. I mean, the odds are very slim, but the possibility that every single Big 12 team can make a bowl game is still alive. And West Virginia is one of those teams that still have to win out. They still have a tough task ahead of them. But first, let's talk about this game against Oklahoma. They win 23-20. And the biggest story here, Steve, was the change under center.
Yeah, Garrett Green came in late in the first half to replace Daniels. And honestly, it was like you were watching a different team. And you almost felt like the offensive unit was more confident that plays could be executed and that somehow they were going to get the job done. I would be shocked if Daniels starts again the rest of the year, unless Garrett would then struggle and it would prove to be one of those, fluky kind of things. But I don't think so. I mean, I think Green is a good quarterback. West Virginia is the kind of team you do not want to make mistakes against. And that's what is the specialty of the Sooners this year is costly turnovers, stupid penalties. And you know what's kind of surprised me with this game? And I was going to go and the weather was iffy and I wasn't feeling that great. So I stayed home and watched it. But I have a pretty large group of friends that are West Virginia fans. Mm-hmm. And none of them felt that the Mountaineers had any chance of beating Oklahoma and that their bowl hopes were over. I mean, I felt really good about them being able to beat Oklahoma. Now, whether they're going to pull off running.
Yeah, the table, the rest of it is going to be fun. They got to take for the rest of the year, they got to go against Kansas State, which we've seen them play really well, and Oklahoma State. Right now, 2 7-3 teams to finish off the year. I don't know if they can do it. I would love to see it happen. I think West Virginia is a really good story, especially if they make a late change like this with Garrett Green. He's only a sophomore out of Tallahassee, Florida. He's been with West Virginia his entire college career so far, not transferring in. I think there's a little bit of love for me with this new transfer portal. If you stick with your team and you don't transfer out and then you get a shot and you shine, you instantly move up like 5 levels in my book. Because you stay in the same system. And to me, it gives me a little more respect. I'm not taking anything away from the people who transfer and find themselves a better spot. Not doing that whatsoever, but good for Garrett Green and what he did in this one. West Virginia has been one of those teams that has shocked the world multiple times this year. Oklahoma, we saw it against Baylor. Who says they can't do it against a team like Kansas State or Oklahoma State, Steve?
Well, but they certainly have the defense to be able to do that. There's a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. And, when it comes to Green, I don't know that it was as much, JT Daniels is a better quarterback. I think JT Daniels was ready to step in right away and lead this team potentially to a winning season, as opposed to Green, who maybe needed some time. And from all accounts, the West Virginia quarterback crew, they're very tight. They root for each other. They're very, very helpful. I think having a veteran voice like Daniels helped Green an awful lot, in practice, even though he was running, basically the opposing offense. I mean, and that's another good thing for a young quarterback. If you're running the opponent's offense, you're learning a whole other scheme in addition to what your team is doing. So it kind of gives you an insight that you would not have if you were the starter. So I think a lot of things just kind of fell into place here. I'm going to be rooting, for my Mountaineers, to run the table. It's going to have to be done on the defensive side of the ball. I think Oklahoma State has shown that if you have a team put up a really solid, aggressive defensive performance, they can lose a key game. The Kansas State game is the one that if they beat Kansas State, okay, then I'm all in. Okay, then I'm all in, and West Virginia is going to be bowl eligible, and they'll be playing at whatever bowl, the John Denver Take Me Home Country Roads Bowl, whatever. Because there's so many bowls games now. Right. Lord knows where they would play, but
they could be playing at the Quickie Mart Bowl, and as long as they're at a bowl game, that's a win. After the season they've had this year, it's been historic to say the least. Starting off, bringing back the backyard brawl. It's been historic at least. And with the storyline now, you have a brand new storyline with a potential sophomore quarterback on the rise. It really makes you excited. Whether you finish the season 6-6, 4-8, whatever you finish the year as, you have to be excited for West Virginia right now because a lot of things are looking in the right direction, even if you find a way to not get these last 2 wins. Real quick though, kickers need love too. And the win on this one was on the leg of Casey Legg, if you will. He has made all 13 of his field goals this year. And that is something that you can't say about many kickers in the FBS, and that is really good. Before we get out of here, we got to talk about the Sooners real fast. Again, a disappointing season by them. We've talked about this one since we've been blue in the face about Brent Venables. I put a tweet out this week, and I asked the question, are any first-year coaches going to be out of a job towards this offseason? And a few people replied and said Brent Venables. I am not in that category. I'm not on that field believing that's the case. But some other people do think that is. I think Oklahoma, again, we've talked about this. It can't happen. You got to keep Brent Venables. You don't want to take another step back. He was quoted after his loss against West Virginia in this one. They moved to 5-5. They have to wait till next week to be bowl eligible. We're talking about week 11, and Oklahoma is not eligible for a bowl yet. That's wild. But he was quoted saying, we weren't very good at the wrong times. The mistakes that we made today are things that, again, this game will punish you. That's probably the best way you can wrap up this game because it was close through and through. But it doesn't really give you a lot of answers here. It sounds like he's a little tired of answering the same questions over and over again. You know how you fix that, Steve? You start playing better football.
Right. And he and the staff have been stressing they have to be more disciplined. They have to be more disciplined. And they just aren't. Week in, weekend, they're not. In defense of Venables, this is an inherited roster for the most part. He's still bringing in his play. I'm really curious as to what they'll be able to bring in through the transfer portal, because there's going to be a lot of players looking for a place. Oklahoma is one of those landing spots that I think any top-ranked recruit or any person looking for a transfer is going to want to play because of the tradition there, and the home stadium and the fact that, Oklahoma gets on TV because they're Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. So it'll be really interesting to see if they can secure a lot of players through the transfer portal. It'll be fun to see what they turn out to be. And if some of those discipline issues get cleaned up with another spring practice and a new group of players coming in, maybe having some competition at positions where some people might be feeling comfortable because they stayed at Oklahoma, they didn't transfer out with the coaching change, and they think, well, okay, this is my job, and they're a talented athletic team, but that discipline, it's got to start showing up. And I don't know whether the blame is on the current roster and the players just not buying into the system yet, or whether it's the coaching staff simply not holding players accountable. That'll be another interesting story, I think, that'll come out, in the off season and then through spring practices about this kind of competition. How many jobs are thrown open for competition?
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know in the comments. What do you think about the first-year coaches so far? And do you think coaches like Brent Venables are safe this offseason? Both these teams that we've talked about here, there's a little bit of good luck or good news, if you will, moving into next week's game. Oklahoma does host Oklahoma State next week. That's always a great game. That's going to be in Norman. The Sooners have won the team's last 3 meetings in Norman and 8 of the past 9 at home. So good to know there. And West Virginia, again, hosting Kansas State. The Mountaineers have won the last 3 games against the Wildcats in Morgantown. So some good news there. We'll see if they can get going. Again, West Virginia looks to keep their bowl hopes alive with only 2 games remaining.